My name is Tyler Fornes, and I am one of the co-hosts of the Good, the Bad, and the Hungy AEW podcast here on the Voice of Wrestling Podcasting Network. We take a broad scope approach to the world of All Elite Wrestling and the entire universe of Tony Khan. We talk about the big matches, the big stars, the promos, the storylines, and we also look at it from a big picture perspective. How are things going to change over the course of the next 10 years with AEW still in the picture? How are companies like WWE going to adapt and adjust to AEW? Are they going to be a similar way like they did with WCW in the late 1990s? Will there be a counterpunch? We talk about all of that and more on The Good, the Bad, and the Hungy every week on the Voices of Wrestling Network.
This podcast is a member of the Voices of Wrestling Podcasting Network. Visit voicesofwrestling.com to hear the rest of our great podcasts, as well as show reviews, columns, opinions, and updates across the world of wrestling.
Hello everyone, and welcome to Music of the Mat Remix, right here in the Voices of Wrestling Podcast Network. I am your host, as always, Andrew Rich, joined today by a returning guest. She is a journalist, music critic, professor, all-around delight. It's, of course, Maura Johnston. Hello again, Maura.
Hi, thanks for the lovely intro.
It's good to have you back, as always. I actually want to start by wishing you an early happy birthday. I know you're turning 50 in a few days on May the 28th, and that's a pretty big milestone there.
It is a big milestone, so it makes this particular episode very well timed.
It is, yes. Now, just to be curious, I did look up who you share a birthday with, and there's some big names. Seth freaking Rollins,
yes,
John Fogerty,
yep.
Wendy O. Williams from the Plasmatics.
Yes.
Let's see, Jake Johnson, Carrie Mulligan, and a lady named Kylie Minogue.
Yeah.
Which is an incredible coincidence because I know that you saw Kylie perform here in Boston last month.
I did. It was fantastic. It was the second time I've seen her. I guess since she hasn't been back and done really a tour of the States since that tour, the Aphrodite tour back in the early 2010s. And man, she can command a room, and it was so much fun. And I actually have a really great photo because my good friends Kenny and Matthew bought me tickets as a present, and so I got to go as a civilian to the show, which was very fun. And it was very fun to go with these particular pals of mine. But we got really good seats, and she walked right by us when she was on her way to the B stage. So I have a nice shot of her strutting right in front of me, which is really cool. But she was great. Yeah, I love her music. I think that I love the way that she's constantly evolving, and it's kind of like she's doing it, kind of as a laugh too, right? But she's still so fun, and yeah, it was a good time.
Yeah, she's always seemed to me like a very classy, kind of performer for sure.
Oh gosh, yeah. This show wasn't as like elaborately staged as the Aphrodite show. That was like a freaking. I actually went to the Hammerstein Ballroom for that show.
Oh, wow.
Back in, I think it was 2012, 2013. And that was, it was, there were set pieces and there were giant pieces on stage that were moving, and it was incredible. But, and this was a little more casual, but still really good.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you mentioned, she doesn't play the States all that often. Which I guess makes sense because the majority of her fans are in Europe and Australia and those kind of places. And she's not like that well known in the States on the level of, say, a Madonna or a Britney,
Right.
perhaps. But from everything I read, as you said there, the show was really good. So
Yeah. I think the success last summer of, or maybe summer of 2023, of Padam Padam helped sort of like bring her back to the States for a tour, because that was a song that did really well in clubs, and it got some pop radio airplay as well. So I think that that kind of paved the way for her to come and do this 25-year retrospective on her tour. 25? I think it was 25, yeah. Oh, no, it wasn't 25 years. It was Kylie 25. I kept being like, oh, it's 25 years. And it was like, no, it's 2025. That's why it was called Kylie 25. But anyway, because she started, in the late 80s with Stock Aitken Waterman and the Locomotion and everything. So, yeah. But it was great.
What's really funny, though, is I believe that you saw Kylie the day after you went to see Deftones.
I did,
which is such a wild contrast of shows there.
Yeah, it was great. Both of them have very devoted fan bases that are willing to do anything for their artists in question. And, both of them also had people who could really, really belt out a note if you needed to. I went to TD Garden 3 times that week because there was the Deftones show, which I wrote about for the Globe. There was the Kylie show, which was a generous gift from 2 very good friends of mine. And then I saw Mary J. Blige for the Globe as well. So that was like kind of a nice triumvirate of artists to see, artists that are still doing it. And, they've been around for many years and have definitely had ups and downs, but they're still very commanding presences.
You're always staying busy, Maura. You're always out there hitting the streets, as they say.
I try. I gotta
Very
keep
busy.
my cred up.
Well, in any event, let's change gears here. I actually brought in a clip to play that introduces today's topic. It's not a very happy clip, but it's relevant to this discussion here. So let me play this right now.
Okay.
And speaking of Jake the Snake Roberts, he's with our man, Michael St. John.
Thank you, gentlemen. Back here I have a man of legendary proportion, the man, Jake the Snake Roberts. He is a man that you all recognize. He's a legend. Come on, Jake, get on in here. The folks want to hear from you.
What I'm saying right now is this. You go to a casino, and everybody says, well, gosh, the casino, you should gamble. Let me tell you something, Hamble. You don't want to play cards with me because I'll cheat. Okay? I cheat. You want to play 21? I got 22. You want to play blackjack? I got 2 of those too. You want to play aces and eights? Maybe I got too many of those too. Bottom line is this. You do not gamble with me. The only time you should gamble is this. Listen to me. When you walk in a casino and you want to gamble, the main thing is you should realize this. To gamble, you must accept losing. I don't accept losing. And neither does Damien. Damien, my friend. My friend Damien is right here. You see Damien?
Yeah, he just stuck his head out at
Nice
him.
looking pile of snake, huh?
Oh.
You don't want to see us, do you?
Well, I
Let me
know.
show you something.
Yeah, that's
Let
okay,
me show you
Jake.
No, I tell you what, Anvil. Go ahead, Anvil. Roll the dice. Mr. Cameraman, get your ass back up here. Hello? I'm talking to you. Get the camera back up here. That is not what you need to worry about, Anvil. The bottom line is this. When the DDT comes, then the snake comes out. Worry about the DDT. 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 Think about it.
A man of his word, Jake the Snake Roberts. Back to ringside.
Yes, that is the infamous and very uncomfortable Jake the Snake Roberts promo from the even more infamous Heroes of Wrestling pay-per-view from back in the day. Not one of Jake's finest moments, that's for sure. A bit of a downer, but on the bright side, Jake is now many years sober. Thank God for that. And it has inspired today's episode, which I am calling You Wanna Play 21? Because this is the 21st episode of the remix format, and we are going to play songs that came out the year that we turned 21 respectfully. So, Maura, you are playing songs that came out in 1996.
Yep.
And I am playing songs that came out in 2013. So a nice 17-year gap there, and a lot can change in that amount of time, culturally, politically, musically. So it'll be fun to jump back and forth between the eras there, Maura.
Definitely. Yeah, I was going through your list, and I actually reviewed a bunch of the records that we are going to be discussing on your end. So that's exciting. So, yeah.
Yeah. Now, do you remember where you were when you turned 21? How you felt, by any chance?
Well, where was I? I think I was still in no, I was at school because Northwestern, where I went, we were always sort of like off kilter with everybody else's schedules, where it was like we started in September and ended in June. I don't know if that's still the case. And so I remember when I went to college, like every August, my friends would leave town and I'd be like sitting at home twiddling my thumbs waiting for 2 weeks to like get back to campus. So I was probably at school. I think I went to a show at like someplace, because Chicago, a lot of the music venues there were 21 and over, like Lounge Acts, RIP, Empty Bottle, which is still kicking. A lot of those places, obviously there was the Fireside Bowl, which is going to come up later, I think, where that was all ages. But I think I was at a show. I was a junior in college, and I was still, because like finals wouldn't have even started at that point. Like we were still in class mode. Also, my birthday is like Memorial Day weekend all the time. So like celebrating it has been very like awkward and frustrating at times, because it's like people either go out of town or like, living in Boston. We've had the Boston Calling Music Festival, which, I've tried to not go because I don't know, I'm getting too old for like festivals unless I have like, a place with a couch. But yeah, like I think I was in Chicago and I think I went to a show. I don't remember what show, but that seems to be what I would have been doing. Mm-hmm. What about you?
Well, I was also a junior in college, Connecticut College, in New London, Connecticut there. I was about to go study abroad in England, and my mom had actually died of cancer a few months earlier, so it was a pretty strange time for me.
Yeah.
That's for sure. But, I never really saw the age itself as like this big turning point because, I don't really drink. So being able to legally do it now didn't really matter all that much. Not to be all WWE on you, but it was about the moments, more
right,
so
the
than
moments,
the age.
Yeah.
So, graduating high school. Yeah, exactly. Graduating high school, college, getting a job, moving to a new place, things like that. And I live a very routine lifestyle for the most part, too. So whenever some big change does happen, that's going to be a lot more impactful than a birthday, I think. At least now, anyway. Like, maybe I'll freak out when I turn 40 or whatever. I don't know. We'll see. But, right now, it's about the moments more than the age, as I said. But
yeah, for sure. I mean, for me, it was very much about being able to just get into those venues because like so many good bands would come and I'd be like, well, unless there's some way that I can get in, which sometimes like I got into Lounge Acts a couple of times before I turned 21 because I was like interviewing an artist, but it was mostly like I couldn't go to shows, so I would like watch them if they'd come to the radio station where I worked, the college station. It was much more for me, I think, about like that access to those places.
For sure. All right, well, let's get to some music here. We have 10 songs each and a play-out song at the end. And, I say this all the time, but it was pretty tough to narrow down my list. In fact, 2013 has some of my favorite albums ever. And I've played songs from those albums before on the show, but I decided to make the painful choice to not play them in favor of other songs, other bands. Mm-hmm. So I will give a shout-out to Random Access Memories by Daft Punk, and Now What by Deep Purple, and The Bones of What You Believe by Churches, of course, The Next Day by David Bowie, some other big names out there, of course, but I will not be playing them on the show here today. I still have a few of the old favorites on my list. Don't you worry about that. But I had to show some restraint. Meanwhile, Maura, you sent me 2 playlists. One of them is your list of 10 songs. The other is a list of 50 songs called the Director's Cut, because you told me that the year is too big. You had to make it. So I was a bit amused by that, Maura, for sure.
Oh gosh, I mean, it was such an exciting year. I was talking to my friend Mike, who's actually in the wrestling themed band Jobber, which is a great band. And we were talking about how 96 was like this kind of inflection point for a lot of things. Like you had, I mean, it was interesting because it was definitely like pre-digital distribution, obviously. Like Napster wasn't even around at that point. But you had, all of these kind of like all these artists that were just like putting out exciting records at the independent level and at the major label level. Like, you had like debuts from like Maxwell and Fiona Apple and DJ Shadow, and then you had artists like Beck and Fugees and Outkast taking these like big swings. Super fun, like one shots, thanks to soundtrack albums being such a popular thing back then as a way to kind of, offer a sampler pack. So you had like the Romeo and Juliet soundtrack, and my favorite was actually the soundtrack to Beautiful Girls, because it had 2 covers by the Afghan Wigs, who were one of my favorite bands at the time. Not on this list, but they are in the Director's Cut list. And then, just like big fun pop songs. You had the Spice Girls, you had Fantasy by Mariah Carey, which was, that's sampled Tom Tom Club, and, just it was so exciting and fun. And I feel like there was just a lot happening, and it was kind of it felt like the beginning of the end in retrospect in some ways, because, that was also the year that like Metallica got put on Lollapalooza, which was seen as this kind of like, what is happening to this festival? And then the next year, was the last year until it started back up in like the early 2000s. And it was kind of this, shining moment where all of the promise that had happened, that it, had been kind of lurking since 1992-93 really came to fruition in a lot of exciting ways. And then, I mean, you can make different arguments about how it worked out. I think, some of it worked out for sure. Like there are definitely great bands on this list that I'm about to give you that had, great and great artists that had wonderful legacies. But at the same time, this was only 3 years before Woodstock 99. So
Yeah, I mean, in fairness to you, there are just hundreds and hundreds of albums that come out every single year.
Oh,
it's a lot of music, so I get it. Believe me, I get it. But Maura, you are the guest. You will go first. What's your first pick?
So my first pick is Ghost Town DJ's My Boo, which I think is probably my favorite single of that year. I have a really special place in my heart for what I call roller skating jams, which just feel made for sort of gliding around a rink whilst, the fairy lights are twinkling and the DJ is, getting everybody pumped. And like this is by a group in Atlanta that specializes in like R&B and Miami bass called Ghost Town DJs. And it's their only hit. But it, if you're going to have one hit, like this is the song to have, because it's just so wonderful. It's like, it has like a very nice sort of like, hype, like active beat, but it still has this kind of like cottony soft feel thanks to the lead vocal. And I just love it. And it's really stood the test of time for almost 3 decades.
Every day I pray my heart can win. Every night I pray I can call you my man. Yeah, yeah, yeah. I need you. I want you to have you, hold you, squeeze you. So I'm going out every weekend just to see my boo again. At night I think of you.
Yeah, so that's my boo. I mean, it's just so it's just so catchy and fun and sweet, and I feel like it just has, this really nice, I don't know, like nice is it's such a malleable word, but it really just is one of those things where if it would come on the radio, it was like the clouds would part and the sun would shine, and it's just this beautiful pleasure that I think, still manages to cut through like the chaos of this moment. It still sounds great, I think that's one thing about a lot of the songs on my list is that they still sound really great even so long after their release.
Yeah, it's simultaneously a pretty basic song in terms of concept and theme and rhythms and all that stuff, but there is that air of mystery about it as well, because it's the very definition of a one-hit wonder, because it's, I think, literally the only single that they put out. And they were around for 2 years, had 2 albums in 96. This wasn't on either of them. Right. And I had never heard of the individual members or anything else they've done either. So, the name Ghost Town DJs is pretty fitting, because they just up and vanished after this one song, apparently. I don't know.
Yeah, I think that like I think that, they stuck around like the Atlanta scene. And this is interesting too, because, one of the people who discovered this act was Lil Jon. Because he was working at because he was working at the label So So Def, which was Jermaine Dupri's label. And I guess, they just put out, like, I think that's so great. I mean, this song is even on a comp. It's like it's a really good comp too, actually, the So So Def Bass All Stars. Like, if you liked that song, and you'd like to hear other variations on that theme, definitely check out that compilation.
Mm-hmm. And this had a resurgence about 10 years ago because of a meme called the Running Man Challenge, where people made videos of them doing not the classic Running Man dance, but a dance that kind of looked like running. And the high school kids who came up with it were on Ellen's talk show, and they explained how this song just randomly popped up in their head in class one day, and they made the video, and it blew up from there.
Yeah, it also had like a little bit of a renaissance in 2013, because Ciara, on her very good self-titled album from that year, she did a song with Future, who she was dating at the time, that sampled My Boo, and it's called Body Party. It's really good. So definitely, if you liked that and you like R&B and you're like, hey, Future, I've heard of him, check out Body Party as well.
Mm-hmm. Well, most of my picks, funny enough, they are from the UK.
I was going to say.
Just how it worked out. I don't know.
Yeah.
Starting with my first pick here, this is a band called Arctic Monkeys. And they put an album out in 2013 called AM. And I went with the opening track called Do I Wanna Know?
Nearly every night this week, how many secrets can you keep? 'Cause there's this tune I found that makes me think of you somehow, and I play it on repeat until I fall asleep, spilling drinks on my settee. Do I wanna know if this feeling flows both ways? Sad to see you go, sorta hoping that you'd stay. Maybe we both know that the nights were mainly made for saying things that you can't say tomorrow day. Crawling back to you, never thought I'd call and run. You like you, 'cause I always do. Maybe I'm too busy being lost to fall for somebody new. Now I thought it through, crawling back to you. So have you got the goods?
So I was aware of Arctic Monkeys when they, came around first, and that first album was a pretty big deal.
Yeah.
This is my favorite Arctic Monkeys album, though. I just like the slower, groovier slunkier sound, you might say, with the harmonies that they go for with this album and the song here. Not that I don't like the Fast and Furious garage rock songs like, I Bet You Look Good on the Dance Floor, or Brian Storm, or When the Sun Goes Down. Those are good too, but this is the stuff that hits me the most, I think. This, Are You Mine, Arabella, Snap Out of It, songs like that, Maura.
For sure. When I remember when Are You Mine came out, I was so bowled over by it. I loved the sort of switch up that it had, that it indicated for the band. And then when this record came out, almost a year, maybe even longer after that, I love this record. I think it's so great. Do I Want to Know is so good. And I just feel like that, you're right. Like putting like their sort of 45s, like I Bet You Look Good at the Dance Floor on 33 was such a great move for this band. Mm-hmm. And this song, this whole album, it was a treat to see this on your list and like revisit it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's funny to see where they went from here with Tranquility Bass and the car and that sound, that lounge singer Baroque pop style, and how much of a swing that was from 06 and that whole time. But bands change, sounds change, and I think AM is right in the middle of that change for sure, Maura.
Totally, yeah.
All right, what's your next pick there, Maura?
My next pick is a song that has become its own sort of force in pop culture, but it's also a great song. It's Pony by Ginuwine. Ginuwine, R&B singer, he has an incredible vocal on this song. Obviously, like what makes it sort of a new classic is the production by a then up-and-coming producer named Timbaland. This was sort of his first breakthrough production. And, it still sounds like beamed in from the 24th century. Like, I love the sounds. I love the squelches. I love the squeaks. I love everything about it because it just accentuates the intensity of Ginuwine's vocal. And, this song is just unimpeachable. Another, not to like pat myself on the back for picking great songs because like obviously the year, it being 1996 helped. But like this is just, an all-timer.
I'm just a bachelor. I'm looking for a partner. Someone who knows how to ride without even falling off. Gotta be compatible. Takes me to my limits. Girl, when I break you off, I promise that you won't wanna get off.
Yeah, that song is just, it just sounds so great now. And I feel like, it's that great combination of like next generation production and just classically barn burner vocal.
Yeah, this is one of those cases where I knew the name Ginuwine, I knew of the song, and I thought I had never actually heard the song, but then I played it, and I was like, oh, I've totally heard this before. That funky backbeat with the synth voice, that's unmistakable. Yeah. Sexuality is just oozing out of every note here. Double entendres galore. It's a classic, and I would wager that up until Chapel Rowan came around, this was the biggest song ever with the word pony in the title.
That's a good question.
Yeah, they might be neck and neck right now, but still an iconic song regardless, Maura.
Yes, definitely really good. Just, sounds great. I saw Ginuwine like 12, 13 years ago at BB King's in New York, and he was fantastic, running around the whole venue. It's like a supper club in Times Square, and just, everybody was going bonkers because he was just so intense and so hot. And he sounded great too, right? So it was just a perfect night.
Yeah, he's 54 now, and he's still very much a good-looking man. I will agree on that. My only other knowledge about him really is that he was on Parks and Rec as Donna's cousin.
Oh, right. Yeah,
which was a funny little bit there. And he
Yeah.
was also on The Masked Singer a few years ago, too.
Yeah, The Masked Singer, like, I don't know, I know this is off topic, but I don't know how I feel about, like, The Masked Singer being sort of, like, increasingly populated by actual singers. Because I feel like the whole point of it is to be like, oh, this person can sing. And it's like, yeah, we know Ginuwine can sing. We know Neo can sing. We know Gretchen Wilson, who just won the season that ended a couple of weeks ago, can sing. I don't know. Not that I'm a Masked Singer purist, because, like, I only basically, like, look at to see who got eliminated on Thursday mornings. But it is just interesting to see how that show has sort of evolved into, like, this kind of post VH1, because VH1, when they were doing their kind of retro musician programming back in the early 2000s and, having like, it wasn't Bands on the Run, but they had like the Bands Reunited, where they were trying to reunite like, what was that band? I think Missing Persons was one. I think Flock of Seagulls was one.
Mm-hmm.
And, that's the kind of stuff that, like, I feel like this iteration of The Masked Singer, like, the VH1 of, like, 2005 would have probably aired it instead of Fox.
Mm-hmm.
And now they just air reruns, so.
Oh, yeah, it's all gone.
The cable wasteland. Yeah.
Yeah. All right, my next pick here. This is a fellow named Johnny Marr.
Hey.
Formerly of the Smiths, and someone with a very big career, but it wasn't until 2013 that he had his actual, like, proper debut solo album, which is pretty amazing. This is an album called The Messenger, and this song is called New Town Velocity.
Two symphonies, they play on for you and me. When we face that July dawn, uniforms, one and one, no wrong. We chase that summer down. I'm in something alright, I know. I got to live it out, I can't resist, net for zero, oh no. It turned out like I said it would. Can I get the word right here?
Yeah, I've said before, I'm not the biggest Smiths fan in the world, or Morrissey solo, but I really like Johnny Marr's solo work.
It's very good.
There's something about him. He's got the talent. Obviously, he can do your more slower, more emotional songs like this one. He can do the more rockin' stuff. He's a good singer, of course. And unlike Morrissey, he's not a giant pretentious douchebag, which is nice too. So yeah, it's surprising that it took this long for his first proper solo album, but he delivered the goods, and I recommend for sure both this album and his follow-up, Playland, which came out in 2014. More.
Yeah, definitely. I've really enjoyed his solo work over the last decade plus. I feel like because Morrissey, obviously, you have the whole thing where it's like the lead singer always kind of takes the shine, unless you're a band like Van Halen, where it's like, oh, the band is named after the drummer and the guitarist. But, but Johnny was so crucial to like the sound of those Smiths records and like the emotional weight of them too, with his, just very kind of intuitive guitar playing. And I feel like that really shines on his solo material.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, for sure. And this song is about like moving forward, moving on to what's next. And he seems to be a guy who's always doing that. He's always doing something, whether it's his solo work or his work in bands like Electronic and The Pretenders and and his session work and all that stuff. So it's true to life as well, for sure.
Yeah. He's a good He's a good force in the world.
Yeah. But, all right, what is next there, Maura?
So next up is an artist who was very crucial to WNUR, which is the station where I cut my college radio teeth. WNUR 89.3, broadcasting out of Evanston, Illinois, and it broadcasts all the way down to the Loop in Chicago. So it has a really big transmission, which was very daunting when I first got on the air there, even though I was on at like 2 a.m. But, you know, WNUR, the rock show, was very, very devoted to like finding new stuff, particularly from the local environs. And like we had, we were very lucky in that we had like the sort of free jazz movement, and obviously we had a bunch of clubs where artists could play. And so this artist, Bobby Conn, he kind of came up in he came up in very mysterious circumstances. Like he had like a lot of mythologies behind him when he put out his first single, The Sportsman, Who's the Paul, backed with The Sportsman. The Sportsman is like the song that I always think of because it's very funky and very profane and very swaggery. But that single was the #1 single of '95 at WNUR. And, it was just like, they wholly embraced him because he had like, this kind of glam rock edge, but he also had like noise cred and free jazz cred and everything. So this song that we're about to hear is the A-side to his second single, and it is called Never Get Ahead. And I don't know, I feel like it's a song with a message that still resonates today.
I think it does. Let's hear it, shall we? Okay.
Yeah.
Like a little man in your business suit. Go to town and stand in line. Get down on your knees. So you suck off that old man. Baby, you're degrees. But you're never gonna get ahead. Giving head to the man. No, you're never gonna get ahead now. Giving head to the man. No, you're never gonna get ahead now. Giving head to the man. No, you're never gonna get ahead. Give it head to the man. Oh, that's right. When I'm on the hustle, I often play the punk. I don't got to move a muscle, 'cause I'm so full of junk. I'll admit I'm not always proud. I take it in their ass. This is just how I'm screwed.
Yeah, so that's Bobby Conn. That was that Never Get Ahead, and that also appeared on his self-titled solo debut album, which came out a year later. Shout out to Monica Boo Boo, who plays violin on that song. That is Bobby Conn's partner. I feel like, he was sort of like, he had this whole mythology about him. Like when I went to see him at Lounge Acts after I turned 21, he made the whole, like, he had this preacher kind of edge to him, and he made the whole audience kind of like get on the floor, and they did it, which, if you're in like indie rock Chicago in 1996, that is not going to be a normal occurrence. But he has this really great charisma, very sort of withering about like, the way of the world and stuff. Like definitely I recommend both versions of his album. The CD version and the vinyl version are both slightly different. Streaming services mostly have the CD version, but he's still putting out records. I feel like in 2020, I think his last record was in 2020 when he put out a record called Disaster, and it came out like right during the pandemic, and it's a little more sort of like it's a little more like of that in that Arctic Monkeys AM kind of vein, where it is a little more sort of like world weary and tired, but it's really good, and it was very of the inadvertently of the moment in 2020, where it was called Disaster, and it was like, oh yeah, that's kind of what's happening right now. Hey, I also highly recommend, if that song interested you, definitely check out the version of this song on the Chicago children's program Chick-A-Go-Go.
I was going to bring this up.
Yeah, which is like, it's very different, obviously, but it's still very entertaining.
Yeah, this knocked me for a loop. Because it sounds like a song from another decade.
Yeah.
You know, this could be 70s T-Rex. It could also be, I think, 2000s Scissor Sisters as well. The falsetto there, I just got those vibes. And B, this sounds like a song that should have been like an actual like mainstream hit. Like, it's such a fun banger of a tune.
Yeah.
It feels like a no-brainer of a hit, except the song is a tad dirty. Go to town and stand in line, get down on your knees, so you suck off that old man to pay for your degrees. Other men are always proud to take it in their ass. And the refrain is, but you're never gonna get ahead giving head to the man. And he says it over and over and over again. Not the cleanest song for radio, I don't think, but it is a genuine bop of a tune, Maura.
It's so good. It's so funny because like I was talking about this in my class a couple of weeks ago because we were talking about the Sexy Red Bruno Mars collab, Hot, Juicy, and Wet. And, you know, students were like, well, you know, when I was a kid, like, we didn't hear stuff like this. And I was like, yeah, but when you were a kid, you know, which wasn't long ago for them, you know, they're in their 20s, but their parents were still listening to the radio, right? Their parents were still listening to, like, radio, which obviously was, you know, subject to FCC. And, like, with this song, we would have to, like, bleep it ourselves when we were playing it on the air. So I was always kidding that, you know, sliding those sliders or hitting the channel button to make sure that I got every swear out, because 96 was definitely a year when the FCC was kind of on the warpath and college radio stations were very much in peril at this point. But I do wonder if it's due for like sort of, you know, r/anti work like revival of sorts, because I do think that it definitely captures the spirit. I mean, it's very Gen X slacker spirit, but it's very like, you know, modern day. I can't believe that I have to get, you know, interviewed by an AI agent that's malfunctioning spirit too.
Yeah, it's the clean version that you mentioned on the kids show. It's never gonna get ahead saying yes to the man, which you know has the same connotations. A lot of this dirty there, and that performance, you know, he's lip syncing it. He's doing this frenetic dancing. There's teens behind him just awkwardly clapping and dancing, and towards the end of the song, you hear the music track go, "You're never gonna get ahead, no, giving head to the man, no, whoops, you're never gonna get ahead." Like, he kept the mistake in the track. It's incredible. And afterwards, the host asks him, you know, what makes this a special version? And he goes, well, the original version is a more of an adult version. And she goes, well, how's that? And he says, well, that's not important. And people laugh off camera. Again, it's an incredible video, and people should watch it for sure.
Definitely.
Yeah. All right. Well, speaking of singers and dancers and things of that nature, my next pick here, this is a lady who is a singer, songwriter, dancer, actress extraordinaire. This is Janelle Monáe, and she put out her second album in 2013 called The Electric Lady, and I picked a song called Dance Apocalyptic.
You're going crazy, the him and always find you. Do that dance, smoking in the girls' room, kissing friends. It's over like a comic book exploding in the bathroom stall. You're so freaked out, worried about the bomb that you bought a house, but I'm allergic to the house bitch credit cards. They bought a new wife for a shiny little lonely man. But I really, really wanna thank you for dancing till the end. You found a way to break up. You're not afraid to break out. But I need to know if the world says it's time to go. You think you break up? Bang, 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 don't stop. Chang-a-lang-a-lang. But I need to know if the world says it's time to go. Tell me if you break up. Smash, bang, bang, don't stop. Chang-a-lang-a-lang. Smash, smash, bang, bang, don't stop. Chang-a-lang-a-lang. You gotta laugh at the zombie in the front yard. Take a bath, but nothing gets the phone call. You're on TV, rocking and rolling, 'cause they did just let her rock and roll. Sick and tired of food tasting plastic and what a crowd. But a robot's on a real bitch, you're asking why.
All right, so picture this. It's 2013, and I'm listening to a music podcast, and they're doing a recap of the year. And one of the hosts, it's like, I brought in this song. It's by this woman named Janelle Monáe. And I didn't know who she was. But she played this song. And I was like, oh, this is freaking awesome. Like, It's so catchy. Her voice is incredible. The whole smash, smash, bang, bang, don't stop. That's a lot of fun, too. And to top it off, this album and her first couple of releases, actually, they're part of this, like, concept album series about a dystopian future city. So there's, like, some prog rock element in there, too. Like, it's amazing, Maura. I can't believe it.
I love her. I think she's so great. I first heard her covering the DeBarge song Time Will Reveal on this compilation that Big Boy of Outkast put together in the late 2000s when he was sort of, like, this was, like, mixtape era. Everybody was releasing mixtapes, and he put out a mixtape called Got Perp. And her cover of Time Will Reveal, like, it's a great song, but, like, her vocal was really good. And then she put out, the Metropolis suite and, she put out the Arcandroid in 2010. And then I saw her and it was a double headlining bill, her and Bruno Mars. And it was, like, two of the greatest performers ever, like, trying to outdo each other. So good. So good. That was in 2012. And then this record, The Electric Lady, I think is a fantastic album. I also want to give a shout out to, like, all of the collaborators that she brought on with this record. Like, there's, when Prince is on song 2, it's like, oh, okay, you're, like, serious. But her duet with Miguel, Primetime, is, like, one of my favorite R&B ballads of that year, because I feel like the two of them are just so in tune, and they also just have those, like, they respect the classics, but they know that they have to push into the future. I was, when you showed me that this was on your list, I was like, oh yeah, the Electric Lady. And then I looked at the track list and I was like, oh yeah, this record is freaking amazing. Like, it's so good top to bottom, and the guests, Solange is on it too. And so is Esperanza Spalding. And it's just a really great forward thinking piece of funk. She's so interesting and cool. And, obviously she's doing other stuff now in addition to making music, but I feel like she is just so special. I remember I went to New Orleans Jazz Fest the weekend that Prince died. And obviously, like, Prince was somebody who was very important to her, was a mentor to her. Obviously, they duetted on this record. And she closed the show with a 3-song Prince tribute that was so, like, the epitome of leaving it all on the stage. It was just out of this world. And she got carried off stage at the end. And, she's a very special artist, I think.
Mm-hmm. I highly recommend people watch her performance of this song on Letterman.
Yeah.
Because she is just a ball of energy doing this live, just nonstop moving around. She dances on Letterman's desk. Incredible. And at the end of the song, she picks up the mic stand and she throws it down and she messes up her hair and just stomps off camera. Like, yeah, I'm here now. Deal with it, baby. Like, it's a great performance.
So good. So good.
Mm-hmm. But all right, what's your next pick there, Maura?
So my next pick is sort of a dual symbol. It symbolizes, for one thing, the importance of soundtracks to the musical environment of the mid-90s. You had so many soundtracks that were just helping people sort of navigate through music, from, like, the Batman soundtracks to, like, Clueless and, like I said earlier, Beautiful Girls,
Judgment Night, of course, was a big
Judgment Night. So many things that were just, ways for labels to obviously, like, spotlight their artists. Romeo and Juliet was another big soundtrack of '96. But I think one soundtrack that really kind of changed the game was the Trainspotting soundtrack. The Trainspotting soundtrack was sort of this, it had, like, older songs in it for sure, but it also had songs that were sort of dwelling on the, in the midst of this, like, British music renaissance that was happening in the mid 90s. You had, Britpop was kind of beginning to curdle at that point because it was very sort of optimistic, and then it was sort of, getting too big for itself. But then you also had, artists like Underworld, and, it was just, I think, a really great primer for a lot of people who might not have been super up on what was happening in the UK at that point. Not me, because I was like buying issues of Select magazine at Tower Records in '93, but not everybody can be as advanced as 18-year-old me was. But '96 was also the year that this band started sort of creeping up my personal Britpop ranks. They were still behind Suede, but they were definitely up there, and that band is Pulp. Pulp, the very brainy, very sort of, world weary. I know that I've said that a lot, but that's a quality that I really like in music. Very smart and very sort of like, precise pop band. So this song that appeared on the Trainspotting soundtrack, it's Mile End, and it's a song about a really crappy apartment that Jarvis Cocker lived in.
We didn't have nowhere to live. We didn't have nowhere to go. Till someone said, I know this place off Burnett Road. It was on the 15th floor. It had a board across the door. It took an hour to price it off and get inside. It smelt as if someone had died. The living room was full of flies. The kitchen sink was blocked. The bathroom sink not there at all. Ooh, it's a mess, alright. Yes, it's my in the sky. I never thought I'd live so high, just like heaven, if it didn't look like heaven. The lift is always full of bliss. The 5th floor landing smells of fish. Not just on Friday, every single other day. Below the kids come out tonight. They kick a ball and have a fight.
Great song. I love how precisely arranged it is too. Like, it has this like kind of tension where it's like, we're all gonna die here, but it's also really funny and kind of like a friend telling you, which is so much of Jarvis Cocker's deal, is sort of like he's just at the pub like telling you a very well told story about something that happened to him. But I yeah, and Different Class came out in '95. Otherwise, I would have picked a song from that. But I think that this is very representative of like what was going on in pop and in my personal canon, and also just it's a great song.
Yeah, I found a quote where Jarvis talked about the actual place that inspired this song. He called living there the worst 9 months of his life.
Yeah.
And you can tell because the lyrics, they are very matter-of-fact. The living room was full of flies, the kitchen sink was blocked, the bathroom sink not there at all. The lift is always full of piss. The 5th floor landing smells of fish, not just on Friday, every single other day. Like, he's not trying to be super poetic about it. It's quite realistic and plain language. And I think it's fitting that this song, was on the Trainspotting soundtrack because the movie's about heroin addicts in Scotland, and there's some real nasty apartments in that movie, and bathrooms as well. So yeah, it's a good fit for sure.
Yeah, it's great. I hope that they do it at Suffolk Downs in September.
That's right, they're
when they're
playing
going to
this
be
year.
here.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, I'm like seeing them live is so much fun. Like in 2011. They had a week where like they played multiple times in New York, and I went to, not only did I go to the Pulp show, but I went to this thing at the Whitney where Jarvis performed songs, which he never ever performed songs from, especially in the States, from his Electroclash side project Relaxed Muscle, which is fantastic, and it was great, and I almost cried, even though like the songs are like so like dirty and everything, but it was so cool to finally see this record that had been living in my mythologies for a decade, well, with the Relaxed Muscle stuff. But yeah, they're Pulp, great band. I'm very excited for the new record. I'm very excited for the tour. I'm very excited for maybe another Jarvis Cocker solo album or whatever he does. I mean, he's just great.
Mm-hmm. Well, as I mentioned earlier, I did pick a few of the old reliables, and this is one of them. Black Sabbath put out their final studio album in 2013 called, appropriately, 13, and I went with a song called Age of Reason. So that's produced by Rick Rubin. So, of course, the audio is overly distorted and compressed, unfortunately. But having said all of that, I still love it because it's Black Sabbath with Ozzy, Tony, and Geezer making new music together again. It sounds like Sabbath. It has the darker, heavier feel of Sabbath. The lyrics are Geezer through and through. Do you hear the thunder raging in the sky, premonition of a shattered world that's gonna die? In the age of reason, how do we survive? The protocols of evil ravaging so many lives. And really, it's amazing that we actually got one last Sabbath album with these guys on it. Now, what would have been really amazing and special was to have Bill Ward on there.
Right, I was going to say, yeah.
He was supposed to do it originally when they reunited, around this time, but he backed out of the reunion because of a contract dispute, of course. But they got Brad Wilk from Rage Against the Machine on there, who's a great drummer, of course. But, you do kind of wish that Bill was there, too, to, complete that original lineup there more, of course.
Yeah, I think that actually, it was funny because I was, rereading. So, 2013, I was reviewing records. I was reviewing 5 albums a week. And I reviewed the Black Sabbath record, and I remember listening to it while I was at the second installment of the Orion Festival, which was Metallica's music festival.
Right,
short-lived. Right. Yeah. Great both years, but unfortunately, it lost too much money for them to do it again. But, I remember thinking Bill Ward sort of, because his drumming had kind of a lighter touch to it, so it would have sort of leavened. But I think that because studio technology and obviously Rick Rubin can make their music sound so massive.
Mm-hmm.
I wonder what Bill Ward's drumming would have done to that package, because it does just sound like a big old womp. And so, yeah, I remember obviously it was really interesting to listen to new Black Sabbath when I was also seeing Metallica and, bands like Dead Sarah and stuff. But yeah, I liked this record quite a bit.
Yeah, God is Dead was the single, of course, but Live Forever is a great song, End of the Beginning. Great album, and actually it's good timing now that all 4 guys are doing the show in July in Birmingham.
Yeah.
That's supposed to be Ozzy's last show, and there's this insane lineup of metal bands taking part too, which is pretty
huge.
Crazy.
Oh my gosh, yeah.
It's got to be the biggest ever, really, I think. But hearing all these stories about Ozzy's health lately, you do wonder if he's gonna make it. I mean, it is Ozzy, and he has survived everything thrown at him, but he's running on fumes here, I think. So fingers crossed he makes it.
Yeah, and he's doing 2 sets, because he's going to be doing a Black Sabbath set and an Ozzy set. So that's going to be what? That's going to be crazy.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, that lineup I'm looking at is Metallica, Slayer, Pantera, Gojira, Hailstorm, Alice in Chains, Lamb of God, Anthrax, Mastodon, and then Billy Corgan, a wrestling adjacent person.
Yeah.
Duff and Slash, Sleep Token, who have the #1 album in the country. What else?
Papa the Fifth from Ghost.
From Ghost. Mike Borden from Faith No More. Sammy Hagar, Tom Morello, Wolfie. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, look, if anyone and any band can bring all these people together.
Oh yeah, it's awesome.
One big hurrah. It's these
Sabbath,
guys. They owe their careers to these guys. So it makes sense there. But all right, let's take a big left turn with your next pick there, Maura. I think so.
Yeah. So this is George Michael. This is his album Older, which was his first album that he released after his dispute with Sony Music ended. And, one thing about George Michael that I think really was driven home by the Andrew Ridgeley autobiography, which came out a couple of years ago. He really was somebody who had this prodigious songwriting talent, from the time he was in Wham, to his solo music. But, people didn't take him seriously enough. Even when he put out a record like Listen Without Prejudice with, Praying for Time, that's a crazy. It's good, but like it's an incredible lead single from an album. And he didn't put his face on the cover of that record, and like the video for that was just the lyrics on the screen, and then the Freedom 90 video was obviously the models, because he didn't want to be in the videos. And he was somebody who I think was always kind of bristling against like this, pigeonholing of him as somebody who was a guy who came up as a pop star, as one of the biggest cutie guy pop stars of the 80s. And so Older was very much, sort of like him striking back against that. And this song that I'm picking is called Fast Love. This is the second single from the record, and it's so beautiful. And it interpolates Forget Me Nots by Patrice Rushen. And it's just such a showcase. I mean, his voice is just so incredible. Like he was one of the best singers. And like, that was the thing about him, when he did the Queen tribute show, like he was just like the guy. He was it, and he could obviously, having him do the whole show would have, made it more of a tribute act, but like it showed how his talent was so all encompassing as like a vocalist, as a frontman, as somebody who could command an audience the way that Freddie Mercury did. He was the best. Anyway, this is Fast Love, and it's awesome.
Looking for some education, made my way into the night. All that bullshit conversation, baby, can't you read the signs? I will play with the detail, baby. I don't even wanna waste your time. Let's just say that maybe you could help to ease my mind. Baby, I ain't Mr. Right, but if you're looking for fast love in your eyes, it's more than love. Had some bad love, so fast love is all that I got on my mind.
So yeah, this record, it was very much also a tribute to his partner Anselmo, who had passed away, and he definitely sported like a very different look on this record, very cropped hair, very sort of like the cover is very severe. It's him glaring, in black and white, and I just feel like this period of his music is just really, really like him showing everything that he could do. Like this record, he also covered I Can't Make You Love Me by Bonnie Raitt. And like one thing about him is that, he was, I guess that was the B-side to a single, but one thing about him is that like he was such a scholar of music. The tour that he did around Faith, he was covering all these songs. His version of What a Fool Believes, which like that's a song that like the vocal on that song is so just, singular. And like you hear What a Fool Believes, you're going to hear Michael McDonald singing that song. His version is so great. It's almost better than Michael McDonald's, which I know people are going to be like, that's heresy. Go listen and tell me I'm wrong. But he was, he was just such a great interpreter of song, but he also was really good at writing and arranging. Like he could do it all. Like I said earlier, he was the best. Mm-hmm. I'm still like sad that he died.
I know. Well, yeah. I played Good Brother George a few episodes ago with Freedom 90.
Yeah.
And that's my favorite song of his. But this is pretty good too. I will admit this is the territory of his career that I'm not all that familiar with. Once we get deeper into the 90s and onward. Totally. But this is a jam. It's very mid-90s R&B, that's for sure.
Yeah, definitely.
It's smooth as hell. And once again, George Michael kind of zigging where others are zagging. In a genre that has so many songs about commitment and relationships and let's stay together and all that stuff. This song celebrates the one-night stand, basically.
Yeah.
What's there to think about? Let's get down, fast love. Come on. It's kind of a fresh take in that regard, I guess, Maura.
Definitely, definitely. And I will say, like, if you want to get sort of quickly up to speed, I would definitely recommend his 2 disc greatest hits album, Ladies and Gentlemen, because I feel like it really captures all the highlights of his career in a very compact but enjoyable way. And it has, some of his live stuff too, including like the Somebody to Love from the George Michael tribute, and like his cover of As by Stevie Wonder, his incredible mashup of Killer by Seal and Papa Was a Rolling Stone by The Temptations. Just super good stuff.
Mm-hmm. Well, I know that after he died, I know Adele at the Grammys did a slowed down orchestral version of this song as a tribute, and she had to restart it because she didn't like how it was going, and she wanted to get it right. And that's a very nice thing to do, obviously. But what an odd choice of song to do, not just as a tribute, but like a somber tribute.
Yeah, like I really didn't like that cover. I was a little like, I get what she's trying to do, but I mean, I don't know. I was definitely like, Adele, what do you do? Like, listen to the lyrics. You're supposed to be this great interpreter of song. What are you doing?
Yeah, like you think Careless Whisper or Father Figure.
Or
one of those songs.
Try. Like,
yeah, one of those songs would
good.
be better.
Yeah.
It'd be like doing a tribute to like 9 Inch Nails and being like, I wanna fuck you like an animal. It's an odd
really
choice.
Sad.
Yeah. But all right. So my next pick here, I am just itching to bust out some prog rock on everybody here.
Yeah.
And I have just the guy to do it. Awesome. This is a guy named Steven Wilson, main guy, head honcho in the band Porcupine Tree, but he also has a very prolific solo career as well. And I picked a song from his 2013 album, The Raven That Refused to Sing and Other Stories. The song is called Drive Home.
You need to clear away all the jetsam in your brain and face the truth. Well, I can make amends, but while the darkness always ends, you're still alone. So try.
So Steven Wilson, he has a reputation for making beautifully depressing prog rock music. And he does do that. Like, case in point, this song, which is 7.5 minutes long, it's kind of about a guy who loses his wife and he blocks out the memory of it because of the trauma, and he has to find peace. So yeah, real sad boy hours here. But man, it is a gorgeous song. It just builds up. His voice is great. There's a guitar solo in this song by a guy named Guthrie Govan, I believe his name is, that is just fantastic. So yeah, this is not my favorite Steven Wilson solo album, but this is just, it is a great, great song. Depressing or otherwise, Maura.
I really liked it. I had not heard it before, and I was not familiar with Steven Wilson, but I really liked the sort of turns and twists, and the guitar playing on this song is outstanding.
Yeah, he's a guy I've really gotten into the past couple years, especially his solo work. Like, I had heard of Porcupine Tree before, and his stuff in Porcupine Tree, it's good too, but I'm a huge, huge fan of his solo work, and his run of albums since this one came out has been excellent, and they've all been different too. Like, he's incorporated more pop and electronica with a few of his albums, and I actually plan on seeing him live later this year.
Oh, where is he playing?
He's playing the Bach Center, the Schubert Theater.
Oh, cool! Yeah.
Because he has a new album out this year, and he's touring it, which is pretty cool. And I'm excited because, much like Kylie Minogue, he doesn't tour the States all that often. His
Yeah.
last one was 2017, I think, and there was a whole pandemic too, of course. But yeah, he doesn't make that many trips over to the States, so I'm looking forward to it a lot, definitely, Maura. So
Totally. Yeah, I'm sure he'd be great to see live.
yeah. All right, what's your next pick there, Maura?
Oh, my next pick is a band that is very near and dear to my heart. So 1996, obviously, like I said, I was in the college radio trenches, and there was this sort of group of musicians who were all like playing on each other's records and doing stuff together, called the Elephant Six Collective. And the top three bands, that was a lot of artists, but the big three bands in it were the Apples in Stereo, Neutral Milk Hotel, and this band, the Olivia Tremor Control. And in 1996, after a couple of singles, they put out their debut full-length album called Music from the Unrealized Film Script Dusk at Cuba's Castle. It was actually a double album, in as much as it came with a second CD that you were supposed to, if you had the capabilities to play two CDs at the same time. It had a CD of like ambient sound that you were supposed to play at the same time as the album itself. And this record, this band was very important to me. They were the first band that I ever kind of followed around the country. So I love the Olivia Tremor Control. Like, I think that, they were sort of like, Apples in Stereo were kind of like the most sort of pristine power poppy of the top three bands. And there were so many others that put out great records, Secret Square and Elf Power and, all of these groups. But, Apples in Stereo were kind of like the power poppiest. Neutral Milk Hotel were definitely the sort of most like chaotic and loud and noise influenced. And the Olivia Tremor Control was kind of in the middle. They had these two songwriters, Will Cullen Hart and Bill Doss, who worked together, and kind of their sensibilities meshed in this really fun way where you can definitely tell which songs each guy sort of took the lead on writing wise. But they all just were glorious, and like live their shows were so much fun. Like, they were just joyous, tons of musicians on stage, everybody yelling along, and God, I love them. And this record is, I mean, both their full-length albums are just fantastic, but this Dusk at Cuba's Castle is just so special, and it has such a place in my heart. And so this is the opening track to that record. It is called The Opera House. So just imagine like a bunch of people yelling, "You make the choice" on stage. It was just so transcendent. Their live shows were so special. I saw them for the first time at the Tavistock Festival in Providence, Rhode Island. I flew out there. And it was this festival that was put on by this zine called the Ptolemaic Terrascope that was a lot of like psych and neo-psych, and Bevis Fron played, Neutral Milk Hotel played too, and then there was a lot of just like experimental stuff like this band Alva that I really loved that put out a couple of records in the late 90s. And but they were just so much fun. And then they played in Chicago a week later. And then the next night, I actually took the bus up to Madison, Wisconsin to see them again. They played on the University of Wisconsin at Madison's campus. And then like later, this was all in 97. And then later that year I went to LA and I saw them in LA and in San, like, I was like, I mean, like, they're so good. And like, they put out another album called Black Foliage, which I think is really good. It's a little more, mature, I guess is the word, but it's still really good. And they also, they broke up in 2000. They got back together. Will Hart had MS, and they got back together, and then they put out a single in like early 2012 that was great. And they played a show at Le Poisson Rouge in New York, and I was so excited I got to go because, seeing them was just this great opportunity to reminisce about like, oh my gosh, me 12 years ago, little did I know. But Bill Doss passed away shortly after that show. And then Will, was still doing stuff in other projects, and he was an artist and, a visual artist. Like all the paintings on Olivia Tremor Control records are of him, and he has this very kind of like goopy, impressionistic dream style that's really, you can tell that it's him when you see a painting of his. And he passed away at the end of 2024. But the other musicians in the band are still, doing stuff and playing around. And they were from Athens. They were based in Athens. The original Elephant Six roots are in Ruston, Louisiana. And like, I think Robert Schneider from Apples and Stereo went to Denver, and then the Olivia Tremor Control was, very associated with Athens. So like, I even went down to Athens in like late '97, and it was. I had a crazy early 20s. I was living at home, and I had my first full-time job. So I was like, yes, planes, let's take them. But really just a special band and so important to that time in my life. And I will always treasure just the music. And they were all just so nice too. They were all just like the nicest guys. Like when I saw them in LA, they wound up crashing in my hotel room. And like I remember going out for bagels with Will Hart at like 6 a.m, trying to find bagels in Santa Monica, which good luck. Especially like pre like internet, forget it, But yeah. So what'd you think of that song?
I've said before on the show, I don't have the highest tolerance for experimental music. Like it's kind of case by case. But once you veer too far into surreal, noisy soundscape bullshit, I tend to tap out.
That's fair.
So reading up about this band for the first time, I was a little nervous. And with this song, there definitely is a bunch of stuff happening musically. Yeah. And the lyrics are a bit surreal. Mm-hmm. But it still rode the line where it was accessible, and I was enjoying it. And I did read up how these guys were inspired by the Beatles and the Beach Boys and their psychedelic pop era, which, makes a lot of sense there. So I did like this song in that regard. And then I looked at the track listing for the rest of the album, and I see that there are 10 songs in a row called Green Typewriters.
Yeah, the Green Typewriters.
That suite, I don't want at all. I don't want that, but I did like this song there, Maura. So there is that.
It does sound good. I mean, like, the Green Typewriters, the song that that sort of suite culminates in, is like a gorgeous pop song. And yeah, like they did a lot of their recording, like they would use, the methods that the Beach Boys used, bouncing tracks back and forth, but they would do it with 4-track recorders. So that's why it sounds a little more hissy and everything.
Mm-hmm. Well, let me switch gears here to a duo of twin sisters from the Great White North, called Tegan and Sara. And this is an album from 2013, of course, called Heartthrob. And I picked a song called I Was a Fool.
Do you remember I searched you out? How I climbed your city's walls? Do you remember me as the vow? How I prayed for your cause? I stood still, it's what I did. Love like as is never fixed. I stuck around, I did behave, I saved you every time. I was a fool for love, I was a fool.
So I like to lovingly refer to Tegan and Sara as the best Canadian twin lesbian duo ever. And damn it if that doesn't prove me right.
It's
Such a wonderful song. You give me some synth pop, some nice female vocals, some emotional swells, and I'm your man, baby. You got me. And I am well aware that they spent many years before this as an alt-rock, indie rock, emo band. Admittedly, I actually haven't delved into that stuff yet. Like, all I know is, like, this side of Tegan and Sara, because it was my first album of theirs that I heard.
Oh, wow.
And I liked it a lot. Closer, I'm Not Your Hero, Love They Say, which I actually played as a playout song on an episode last year.
Nice.
So yeah, as it turns out, they're just a really, really good pop band, Maura. Who'd have thunk it?
This was one of my favorite records of that year, actually. I loved, this was one of the records that it was really good to sort of sit around and cry while listening to. My favorite track on it was actually How Come You Don't Want Me, which I think is just like a gorgeously sad track. But this, this was a big swing for them. This was a big shift. It was definitely very different from everything they were doing before. It was their first record in like a while too. I think it was like 4 years or something between their previous record and this one. And it was definitely a switch up, but I think that one thing I like about them is that they're so willing to grow and so willing to like interrogate where, they have these two very singular voices that mesh really, really well. And they're constantly trying to figure out like where they should take those voices next. And this I thought was such a great idea. Shout out to, Tegan and Sara for just being awesome. I love them. But yeah, you should definitely hear, if you haven't heard Back in Your Head by Tegan and Sara, you got to hear that. That's a great song. And Walking with a Ghost too is good. Jack White covered that too. So, but I think this record is really, really special. And I feel like it was definitely a huge risk for them because they did have this very devoted fan base that, that might have been used to what they were doing and okay with them still doing it. But I think this is just such a good, it was such a great leap for them.
Yeah, I think they've said, this was their pop album. Like, this is what they wanted to do. And one of the producers is Greg Kurstin from The Bird and the Bee, who's produced a bunch of pop hits. I've played that band, before on the show. So he's got that magic touch for sure to help with this sound.
He did Try by Pink the year before, which was like one of my favorite singles of that year or two.
Mm-hmm. And the music video for this song gets brownie points for me because it stars Mae Whitman, who is Anne from Arrested Development.
She's awesome.
Egg.
Did you ever watch Good Girls?
I love that show. Yeah,
great show, and she was so good on it. Yeah. So good.
Yeah, and the voice of Katara on Avatar: The Last Airbender, and she was in Scott Pilgrim, and the show Parenthood, of course, from a few years ago. So big fan of hers, and Tegan and Sara as well. So
yeah,
good on you. But all right, Maura, what you got next?
So my next pick. Okay. So one thing about 1996 that was sort of a little quirk was that it was a really good year for like glam rock pastiche. You had, Female of the Species by Space, which kind of was, very proper, and it had that really great trumpet solo. You had Stone Temple Pilots' Big Bang Baby, which was just Scott Weiland swaggering all over the place, showing that, he and his bandmates knew how to write a really great pop song. And obviously Suede put out Coming Up that year, which, is a great record. But my favorite of that whole sort of like little trendlet was this song by the New York band Spacehog, which is called In the Meantime.
In the end, we shall achieve in time the thing they call
So first off, this is a great karaoke song because the verses are in that low register that's, doesn't blow out your voice, and then you can really save it for the chorus and the incredible bridge. Second thing, this song, the bass line is freaking great. So just gooey and, going along, pushing everything along in this very fun, exciting way. And yeah, it's great. Still sounds great in, almost 30 years later.
Yeah, I'd love to know how many people out there don't actually know the name of the song or the band. They just know it as the song that goes, ooh.
Yeah, for sure. Of course,
because
yeah.
That's how I knew it at first, until I played Guitar Hero 5, and it was like, oh, that's what it's called. Okay.
Yeah.
But yeah, just another classic 90s one-hit wonder, not just with that vocal, but the telephone tones there all throughout, and the bass line, and his vocals too. In fact, this was the opening track on their first album, so it was kind of all downhill from there, I suppose. But when you're number one on the rock charts for 4 weeks, that's no easy feat. So good for them.
Yeah, and this was also, I think, the beginning of the period when I forget if it was 95 or 96, but this was the period when Billboard changed their rules for the Hot 100, where previously you had to have a physical single available for sale in order for a song to be eligible for the Hot 100. And that was kind of messing things up because this was, when alt-rock was sort of becoming a thing, and songs that would get play on alt-rock radio and then cross over to top 40, maybe they didn't have a single because the theory was that the prospective buyers were more into albums. So you started seeing a lot of acts do that, where they would put that strong song at number one, and then it would be kind of like a 12-track maxi single that you'd buy for $19.99 list instead of getting maybe the single for $3 or something. I just said single. I just want to. That's the time frame we're working with here. So.
I got you.
Excuse me.
Also, the main guy, Royston Langdon, yes. He was married to Liv Tyler for a few years.
He was, yeah.
And I don't mean to besmirch the man, but if you look up photos of the two of them together, he may have outkicked his coverage there. He was a lucky man in that sense, Maura. But that's just my opinion. So
I think being a front man for a rock band is sort of it's a bonus point thing.
It helps,
I think that definitely, and he's charismatic. I mean, that vocal on that song is a tour de force performance. And I feel like it's one of those things where he definitely had a lot of personality.
Yeah. Charisma and being in a band, they go a long way. They can go a long way for sure. But yeah. All right, so my other classic pick here is Sir Paul McCartney.
Yeah.
And in 2013, he put out an album called New, which inspired me to write the following scene. Hey, have you heard the new Paul McCartney album? No, what is it? New. Yes, but what's the new album? No, New is the new album. What? I don't know. Third base. I picked a song from this album. It's called Early Days.
Now everybody seems to have their own opinion. Who did this and who did that? But as for me, I don't see how they can remember when they weren't where it was at. And they can't take it from me if they try. 'Cause I lived through those early days. So many times I had to change the pain to laughter just to keep from getting crazy. I lived through those early days. I lived through those early days.
So a song called Early Days by Paul McCartney, it's not hard to figure out the inspiration. You know, him and John Lennon back in Liverpool. Look at the lyrics, you know, dressed in black from head to toe, 2 guitars across our backs, we would walk the city roads, seeking someone who would listen to the music that we were writing down at home. And, you know, I've said before on the show how when you've got an old legend singing wistfully about the past and their voice isn't quite what it was, there's an extra bit of emotional oomph there, you know. So to hear McCartney at the end go, you know, I lived through those early days, and he goes to that really high note, and he just barely gets it. And then he says, you know, plainly, I lived through those early days. Like, you really feel it a little more there. And that was over 10 years ago, and he's still going. God love him. You know, Paul is still going. So, yeah, this is my favorite Paul McCartney album ever, actually.
Oh, wow. Okay.
And it's because of songs like that, Maura. So, yeah.
Yeah, no, it's a good one. I mean, I feel like, you know, it's interesting because obviously, like, he is one of the most famous musicians of all time. Certainly one of the most famous musicians who's still alive. And I feel like, you know, he could be doing anything. And he's been making a lot of interesting choices. And I feel like that is kind of his strength, right? And so it allows him to do these songs that are, you know, definitely, I'm sure somebody cheekily referenced it as Beatlesque, where it's like, yeah, that's the whole point of the song. So you can do these looks back, but he's also doing, you know, like interesting stuff like The Fireman and, you know, supplying like the carrot chewing to a Super Furry Animals song or something.
Yeah. And like a lot of my other picks here, I actually first listened to this at my college radio station back in the day, WCNI.
Oh, nice.
Where I had a show, because they would get new CDs all the time.
Yeah.
So I listened to this there. I listened to the Arctic Monkeys album because of them, Tegan and Sara album as well. And that's one of the many ways that I, you know, expanded my musical horizons and my collection as well. Growing up, it was through that station. That's the importance of a college radio station, is to not just play the music, but also, you know, it can help you introduce you to music as well with just their giant racks of CDs on the wall, you know, everywhere. Yep. It was a small studio, but it was just packed with music.
That's what they do. It's so great.
Yeah. All right. What's your next pick there, Maura?
Well, speaking of college radio, I just wanted to, one thing that was very important to me in 1996 was certain record labels. So you had like Teen Beat in DC, who like combined like this really kind of like precise, very European graphic design with just like very oddball and fun flights of fancy musically. You had Too Pure in the UK, who like were really great at finding these like astral plane existing electro records by like Pram and Leica. You had Merge in North Carolina, who are still holding it down. Fun fact, Merge was the first label to actually send me a promo package to my residence and not just the office of the newspaper. So shout out to Merge, still going strong. And then you had K. And K, you know, if you know the Kurt Cobain lore, he had their logo, the little, you know, the sort of like hand-drawn shield with a K in the middle. He had that tattooed on him. And the leader of K, the founder of K, this guy Calvin Johnson, in the mid-90s, started sort of experimenting, because he had a studio called Dub Narcotic, and he started experimenting with hip-hop inspired production and like, you know, making like beat records and everything. And so in 1996 he put out this EP called Ship to Shore, and the first track on it is a remix of a song sung by one of my favorite vocalists of all time, this woman Lois Maffeo. She put out a bunch of great records in the 90s under the name Lois. Check them all out, they're so good. She was also in a band called Courtney Love, not with Courtney Love, but it was called Courtney Love. And just a great vocal and like really beautiful production, like really just it's such a summery, gorgeous song. And like this is one of my favorite songs. When I hear this song, I'm like, oh yeah, summer is coming, and still to this day. So this is Ship to Shore. This is, I want to get the remix name right. Hold on. This is the Boot Party mix of Ship to Shore. And it's Dub Narcotic Sound System featuring Lois.
It's Ship to Shore forever with a message, indelible with everything that's precious. The part of you that's always looking back to see it's over. It's not enough that memory you're keeping. We made our beds and now it's hard to sleep in. It's well enough to keep from going over that it's
Just so good. And like I love the sort of like G-funk synth that's kind of like winding through that song, and the really just simple strums of guitar. It's like so well crafted. It's so minimalist, but it's so enveloping. And Lois is just such a great vocalist too.
Yeah, that was really good. You know, I had never heard of either this, project or Lois before. It kind of reminded me of like a sister song to like Portishead.
Yeah, like a more sort of
vibes there.
upbeat song than Portishead. Yeah, definitely.
And that's around the same time too, so that kind of lines up there. But I don't know. I don't have much else to say about this one, to be honest with you. I just like it. So yeah, there you go.
Yeah, I in my director's cut playlist, I sequenced this with, I believe, was it 6 Feet? Oh well, I think that 6 Feet Underground was not the right year, but it reminds me a lot of 6 Feet Underground by Sneaker Pimps too. The sort of like more upbeat, major key version of 6 Feet Underground. So.
All right. Well, I will continue the English train on my end here. This is a guy from England named John Newman. Hello, Newman. He put out his debut album in 2013, an album called Tribute. And I picked the big single from this album here. It's called Love Me Again.
Now I'm rising from the crowd, rising up to you, filled with all the strength I find. There's nothing I can't do. A stolen burnt your soul. Is that what demons do? They rule the world to me, destroy everything. They bring down angels like you.
So, first of all, you know how it can be hard to tell sometimes if a singer is British when they're singing?
Yes.
I don't think that's the case here. It's kind of easy to tell that he's from the north of England there, but seriously, I remember hearing this song when it came out, and it grabbed me right away. I don't know much of John Newman's work. I know he's only got 2 albums, this one and one in 2015. He's put out some various singles here and there, various collaborations as well. I know he took some time off because of a mental health break too. But on this song, man, he knocks it out of the park. He's got a hell of a voice. The horn section in there is great. The piano melody is great. The big anthemic chorus just grabs you by the shirt collar. It's a fantastic song. And this was a #1 song in the UK. It was his first single, so that's pretty amazing. And it was hit in many other countries there, too. So, there are obviously artists that I know a lot more of their work and artists that I just love more in general. But I wanted to show some love for John Newman here because I just think this song is so fantastic, Maura.
Did you first hear it when you were living in England?
I don't think so.
Oh,
I think
wow.
I heard it earlier or later, but I don't think so.
Okay, because it's interesting because this is a song that when it was on the list, I was like, I don't think I know the song. And then I listened to it. And so I don't know if I talked about this the last time I was on, but like one of my things that I've been watching in my like downtime is, did you, when you were in England, did you ever see the show Come Dine With Me?
I think I may have heard of it.
It's like the competitive dinner party show where like 4 or 5 people like all have like dinner, like they all host dinner parties for each other and then they rate each other.
I've not seen this show, no.
Okay. Well, it's so like, you know, they have like music licensing because it's the UK and stuff. So like they can use, you know, any pop song that they want. And this song gets used quite a bit on that show, like in the reruns that I've seen. So when I heard this, I was like, oh, it's the Come Dine With Me song. Well, one of them anyway. But yeah, so I really like it though. It has that kind of like nice anthemic feel, and I like his voice quite a bit.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, apparently it's really big in the FIFA world too.
Oh, interesting.
It was on one of the games, and it's been used in like, you know, videos over the years and whatnot. But I remember hearing it in the credits of the Tom Cruise movie Edge of Tomorrow.
Oh,
with him and
I've
Emily
not seen
Blunt.
that movie. Okay.
And it seems like an odd choice because it's an action movie about like aliens, but it's also about like a time loop. And Love Me Again, you know, I suppose it works in that sense there, Maura, but yeah.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, but all right, what you got next, Maura? I believe this is your second to last pick.
It is. So, you know, I've talked a lot about college radio, and I sound like I was always sort of like, you know, holed up in the radio station listening to import Carolina Rainbow records or whatever. But I also love and loved pop music. And 1996 was such a good year for like these just big, fun pop songs. You had Spice Girls, you had Jellyhead by Crush, which is like fantastic. You know, even like the Armin van Helden remix of Professional Widow by Tori Amos. But this song is like, it's just so, I don't know, it's like kind of deranged, but in a great way. It's Ready to Go by Republica. Yeah, my cat was just staring at me as I was like dancing in my chair to that song. He was like, "What are you doing?" Great song, super fun, like just a great vibe, right? And like similar to the song we just heard, very obviously by an English act.
Oh,
but
yeah.
So much fun. I just feel like this song really captures that kind of sunshiny optimism that was about to come crashing to a halt in of the mid to late 90s. And yeah, it's super fun. Also, like, it was used in a scene in like late period Beverly Hills 90210. So whenever I hear the song, I think of that Beverly Hills 90210 scene.
Yeah, I told you this beforehand, but when I saw this song was on your list, I was pumping my fist in the air in celebration. Because I love this song. It's got such a great drive to it. And Saffron, the lead singer, is such a quintessential 90s rock chick with the attitude and the bob haircut and the red highlights.
Yeah.
And that very, very British accent of hers. And, you know, I've heard this song in a million car commercials over the years, I know, but I'll never get sick of it. Any version of it, because most people know this version, which was a remake version of it, with the more hard rock sound, which was on the album. But there's an original version that's like this techno pop version of it, which is also pretty good. So yeah, this song has had staying power over the years, and that's because it's pretty awesome, Maura. So yeah.
Awesome. Yeah, no, it's great.
Also, crazy timing too, because I was wondering the other day, you know, what happened to Republica, because they only had 2 albums before they broke up, and then they got back together again after a few years, but there's been no new music. Well, as it turns out, a new album is supposed to come out spring 2025, which is right now.
Wow.
So I don't know a specific date. I couldn't find any information about that, but according to the band's website, we're finally getting a third Republica album. So, you know, 3 cheers for that, Maura.
All right. Yeah, that's great. Hope it's good. Oh, you know, and like, but they were not a one-hit wonder, by the way, because they had Drop Dead Gorgeous too, which is also a good song. And it's also on that that first album of theirs. And that's like, you know, it's very kind of like, we're still ready to go, but it's good because it's a good, you know, formula to work off of.
All right, well, my second to last pick here. This is a band of 4 talented youngsters from Wilmette, Illinois. You know them, you love them, Fall Out Boy. Here we go, baby. This is from their album Save Rock and Roll, and this is the opening track called The Phoenix.
Bring home the boys and strap metal the tanks. Get hitched, make a career out of robbing banks. Because the world is just a teller and we are wearing black. To broke our spirits and the note we pass. We can take the world back from the heart attack. One maniac at a time, we will take it back. You know time crawls on when you're waiting for the song to start. So dance alone to the beat of your heart. Hey, young blood, doesn't it feel like our time is running out? I'm gonna change you like a remix, then I'll raise you like a phoenix. Wearing our vintage misery. No, I think it looked a little better on me. I'm gonna change you like a remix, then I'll raise you like a phoenix. Put on your war paint.
So yeah, this is the band basically saying, you know, in the words of David Lee Roth, "Heard you missed us, we're back." Because they had taken a break for a few years, like 5 years or whatever since the last album, and they're back, you know, so we can take the world back from a heart attack, one maniac at a time. We will take it back. And they've got a modified sound that is, you know, still their bombastic, punchy rock, but it's a little poppier, you know. There's a string element in this song, with the orchestra sampling this Russian composer, and the chorus, you know, "I'm gonna change you like a remix, then I'll raise you like a phoenix." So it's self-referential. You know, we're a little different now, a little older, but we're back, and, you know, we're taking charge and kicking ass, you know. So, yeah, I like Fall Out Boy. Maura, I know you were excited about this song when you saw it on my list there. So, yeah, the floor is yours.
Yeah, I mean, you know, it's funny because I think that Folia de, which was the last record before Fall Out, which took their hiatus at the beginning of the 2010s, I think that is like just a masterpiece of an album. And I understood why they went on hiatus because, like, you know, it was a difficult record. It was one that like sort of came out at the end of the year in 2008 when, you know, the Obama election was soaking up a lot of the, you know, oxygen, and I just think it's so great. And like, you know, they went on hiatus. Andy and Joe went to their like metal project, Pete Wentz discovered BB Rexa and was doing Black Cards, and then Patrick Stump put out Soul Punk, which is one of my favorite albums of that whole decade because I think it's a masterpiece. I think it's great. It's him doing funk and pop and soul, and he's just so talented. He's such a great arranger. He's such a great songwriter. He's good at everything with music. He does music for the Spider-Man animated series now. That's awesome. So when My Songs Know What You Did in the Dark, which was sort of the song that announced the comeback, came out, I was like, oh my gosh. And then I saw them right after the announcement that they had gotten back together. They played at Webster Hall in New York City. And, they sounded great and they were really great. And I liked a lot of the songs in this record. I really liked Alone Together, which is like this kind of, swinging, like sing-song, love song. I really liked The Mighty Fall, which was this kind of, again, like very sort of like big hulking song. And Save Rock and Roll, the title track and the album closer, which is, grand and in the tradition of Elton John, who sings on the record. And yeah, the Phoenix, like, it's such a storming opening statement. I will say I was a little cooler on the two records that followed, American Beauty, American Psycho, and Mania. I don't know, but I think that the record they put out last year, was it last year? Wait, I don't even know like what year anything is
2023
anymore. 2023, yeah. The record they put out in 2023, so much for Stardust, is great. Like, it's so good. It is like just incredible. It's like the kind of like, suturing like what I really loved about Folie Deux and what I really loved about like their 2010s era into this really interesting record. And obviously, and then the title track, which is also the last track on the record, is just this completely just runaway train, great rock anthem. And yeah, I love them. And I got to see them at Fenway Park, and they did Patrick Stump during his little part in the, he had like a little piano part in the middle of the show where he gets to do his own thing. And he did my favorite song from Folie Deux, WAMS, and that was the live debut of that song, and I got to hear it. So very exciting. But yeah, Fall Out Boy, they're playing here this weekend. I might try and see if I can finagle a ticket and just go to see their set and then leave because, like I said, I'm too old for festivals, but they're great. They're great live. They're really fun. Pete Wentz, he's a good dude. Patrick is the best. Joe and Andy are also very nice, and I love them, and I hope that they thrive.
Yeah, when you were gushing over So Much for Stardust, it took a lot of willpower to not just scream, "Me too! That's an amazing album!" Because, this one, Save Rock and Roll, it wasn't the only time they made a comeback,
Yeah.
Stardust was itself a comeback album because, like you said, Mania in particular, that album veered more towards the electronic side of things, and that got mixed reactions. I know Joe didn't like that album either, and then they course correct and come back to rock with Stardust, and I love that album. The title track, like you said, is amazing.
Hold Me Like a Grudge has that like kind of like post-punky choppiness to it, which is really nice.
Love from the Other Side, Heartbreak Feels So Good. Just great stuff on that album. Again, I'm not like a super duper fan of the band. I like a lot of their stuff, but I just admire their longevity, to have come up during that mid-2000s pop punk explosion, and to still be around all these big shows, all these big tours, headlining festivals, and still making really good music too, to boot. It's cool to see more.
Yeah, no, it's really good. Shout out also, speaking of still doing it, shout out to My Chemical Romance playing Fenway in September. That week is going to be crazy. That's like My Chemical Romance and Pulp. It's like I'm going to be melting down.
Zipping around. Always zipping around there, Maura. I commend you.
But yeah, no, they're great. I'm really excited to see what they do next. I guess like this current iteration of their live set, it's not like the Fenway show was very much, it wasn't chronological retrospective. This is what they're doing now is very much a chronological retrospective of their career. So I'm I'm curious. I wanna see it. I don't know. We'll see. Keep your fingers crossed for me.
We shall. We shall. But Maura, what's your last pick of the episode here?
So the last song I picked is sort of a salute to the fact that 1996 was the first year that I lived off campus, the only year I lived off campus. And what that meant for me personally was that it was the first year in college when I had cable TV that was accessible to me from home. Even though I lived in a dorm that was for journalism and radio, TV, film majors, we did not have in-room cable at Northwestern. We did have in-room internet starting in 1994. So, but obviously bandwidth was not where it was, where you could see any videos beyond like a very pixelated see you see me window. So having cable meant that I could watch MTV. Being a senior in college meant that I had a lot of insomnia because I was very anxious. And I watched a lot of MTV, especially late at night. And so one of the videos that captivated me was this black and white video by this young singer named Fiona Apple. And it was for her song Shadowboxer. And I just loved that it was this kind of like very downcast piano ballad by this woman with this incredibly rich voice. So this is that song, Shadowboxer by Fiona Apple.
Then you let your love abound and you bring me to my knees. Oh, it's evil, babe. The way you let your grace enrapture me. But well, you know I'd be insane to ever let that dirty game recapture me. You made me a shadow boxer, baby. I wanna be ready for what you do. I've been swinging around me 'cause I don't know when you're gonna make your move.
So yeah, shout out to MTV's like late night rotation of videos that they were sort of giving a flyer to. And shout out to Fiona Apple, who wound up becoming one of the most interesting pop stars of the last 3 decades and making, records that on her terms and on her schedule, but that were, very of her vision. But this song I feel like it was just really something that I associate worrying about graduating with a lot. And shout out to my former roommates John and Tony also for putting up with me watching MTV at like 4 a.m.
Well, I remember when we did the debut albums episode last year, Tidal was originally on your list, and then you changed it, and you didn't tell me, so I had to scramble during the recording there, but it all came around. It's fine, and here we finally are with you and Fiona there. There are they're the 3 big songs from this album: this, Criminal, and Sleep to Dream. This is probably my least favorite of the 3. It's still a good song. Mm-hmm. I just prefer the other 2 more. But it is amazing that, she's, 18 years old here, I think? And, I think so, yeah. And to write songs like this that are so mature and serious and not, disposable pop like, so many other people might do at that age. It's really impressive, Maura, for sure.
She's great. And I feel like, we're very lucky that like her labels have let her just sort of be an artist and haven't pressured her to do too much, because I feel like if that would have happened, it would have been a very different story. And I think that, where she is now, she just put out a new song last week because she's been doing a lot of advocacy for people trapped in the court system. And she's great. She's just, and also Fetch the Bolt Cutters is such a singular album, and it just still sounds like, just so great. 5 years after its release, it's still such a stunner.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we played a song from that album on one of the episodes, and talked then about how she's definitely a quality over quantity artist, for sure. Because she makes you wait. She makes you wait for her new music. And I gotta say,
it's always worth it.
great timing on your part here, because a new single just popped up a few weeks ago.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's 5 years since the last album. It's par for the course with her. Just the way it goes with Fiona Apple. So yeah.
Totally.
All right, my last pick here. I mentioned earlier that I left off Daft Punk, but I did pick another French group called M83, which is Anthony Gonzalez. He's the main guy behind it. They did the soundtrack for a movie that year called Oblivion, starring Tom Cruise, there he is again, and Morgan Freeman. And they did a song on the soundtrack that features a woman named Suzanne Sundfør. I think it's how you say her name. She's Norwegian. And the song is called Oblivion. So you know me, Maura. I have gushed on this podcast and on this very episode too about my love for, great, powerful female vocals, soaring choruses, big emotional crescendos, and this song delivers that just in spades. I can listen to that chorus and "In the night you hear me call" on repeat. Over and over again.
Yeah.
It's fantastic. And musically, it's the mix of M83's typical synthy dream pop stuff with the orchestral stuff in there for the movie soundtrack. It's a great combination. And it's funny, I brought up Daft Punk. The guy who directed the movie, Joseph Kosinski, also directed Tron Legacy, which Daft Punk did the soundtrack for.
Oh, wow.
So
yeah,
it all comes together there, Maura. How about that?
It all comes together. That's amazing. I love Suzanne Sundfør. I think her records are incredible. I definitely recommend her albums from 2014 and 17, 10 Love Songs and Music for People in Trouble. Also, if you like that, I don't know if you've heard her collaborations with Röyksopp.
I know
definitely
Röyksopp.
check those out too. Yeah,
I like them,
she's been on a couple of their songs as well. I think that she is just such a fantastic singer, and I love her art. But 10 Love Songs and Music for People in Trouble are just outstanding albums. Definitely check them out.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, unlike Daft Punk, I'm more of a casual fan, as they say. When it comes to M83, like this song, Midnight City, of course.
Yeah.
Kim and Jesse, the intro from Hurry Up We're Dreaming. Great stuff. Really like that. But I'm not as deep into them as I am with the robots. So that,
Understood.
That's just me there, Maura. But
yeah.
But great song for sure.
Yeah, but her solo stuff is really good. That's what I'm saying. Her own sort of material. I've been a fan of hers for a long time, pretty much since I moved to Boston. My friend Kenny, shout out to Kenny, introduced me to her, and I was immediately hooked. So. Well,
I will write that name down. I will check out more of her stuff for sure.
It's in your playlist, so there you go.
Oh, yeah.
You already have it.
There you go. So, all right. Well, that was the episode. Those were our songs, and if I may pat both of us on the back, we have made magic once again, Maura. We cooked, as the kids say. We ate. We cooked and we ate. And you were the first.
Very self-sustaining.
Oh yes. And you were the first person to kickstart this remix format with me way back last year, and you got the ball rolling with a great episode, and this was no different, Maura. So thank you so much.
Thank you for having me. This was so delightful. I love talking about Fall Out Boy too, so thanks for picking them.
My pleasure, my pleasure. Any plugs you want to give? Go right ahead.
So you can find me on Bluesky at Maura.Blues. My username there is Maura. I think it's Maura.bsky.app. I do a radio show on uncertain.fm. That is the website, and my show is every Tuesday at 10 o'clock p.m. Eastern with a rerun at noon Eastern on Wednesday. And I'm still doing stuff for Rolling Stone and the Boston Globe. I just did 2 in a row explainers of why certain albums are number 1 in the guise of record reviews, with the Sleep Token review that record just hit number 1, and the Morgan Wallen review, which that record is projected to sell like a bazillion copies because it's 37 tracks long, and that really helps with sales figures. But also people really like him, and so I dove into why. Mm-hmm. So.
All right, well, Voices of Wrestling Podcast Network, of course, voicesofwrestling.com for all of the shows on there, previews, reviews, articles, things of that nature. Bluesky at Music of the Mat, at Just Andrew on Bluesky there. If you want to leave a comment about this episode, share your picks from when you turned 21, voicesofwrestling.com/Discord. That's also where I post the Spotify playlist for each episode. And of course, make sure you subscribe to the show on Apple, Spotify, your podcast player of choice, and leave a nice rating and review. All right, so the playout song here. I decided to pick a song from Maura's Director's Cut playlist because there's a lot to pick from there. And
yeah, you're going to link that too, right?
I'll put it in there. I'll put it in there for sure. Okay, cool. Definitely. And
excellent.
I went with a song that is great because it's very specific about how much diggity there is.
Oh, nice.
It's not all diggity. It's not some diggity. It's No Diggity by Blackstreet, Dr. Dre, and Queen Pen. Thanks again, Maura.
Thank you so much for having me. This was really fun.
Down, good Lord. Baby got 'em open all over town. Strictly bitch, you don't play around. Cover much grounds, got game by the pound. Getting paid is a forte, each and every day. True play away. I can't get her out of my mind. Wow. I think about the girl all the time. Wow. East side to the west side, pushing fat rides, it's no surprise. She got tricks in the stash, stacking up the cash, fast when it comes to the gas. By no means average, it's on when she's got to have it. Baby, you're a perfect 10, I wanna get in, can I get down so I can? I like the way you work it, no diggity. I got to bag it up. I like the way you work it, no diggity. I got to bag it up. I like the way you work it, no diggity. I got to bag it up. I like the
Music of the Mat is intended for entertainment and information purposes only. The songs used throughout this show are property of their respective copyright holders.
Hey now, it's Mike Gilbert, host of the Mike and JD Show, right here on the Voices of Wrestling Podcasting Network. Join JD by God Oliva and myself every Thursday night live on the Voices of Wrestling YouTube channel at 11:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, as we stay up all night discussing all the hottest stories in professional wrestling. You can also check us out right here on the Voices of Wrestling podcasting feed, or you can subscribe to the Mike and JD Show feed. Now, enjoy the show.